You never think you're the kind of mom your child might fear. You think you're strict, focused, motivated. You think you're giving her tools, grit, discipline, drive, the kind of qualities the world demands from women, but rarely nurtures. You think you're protecting her from failure by pushing her to succeed. And then one day, she looks at you, eyes glassy, voice trembling but steady, and says, "You push me so hard. I'm scared to fail in front of you." That sentence didn't just sting, it shattered something. It was a Wednesday night, nothing special. We were at the dining table, homework spread out like usual, half a plate of cold pasta between us. I'd asked her, again, why her biology quiz grade wasn't posted yet. "I don't know, Mom," she said, without looking up. I pressed, "You don't know or you don't want to tell me." And then she said it, not in a scream, not in anger, but in the quiet, exhausted voice of someone who had been carrying something too heavy for too long. "You push me so hard. I'm scared to fail in front of you." I froze, because I always thought the worst thing my daughter could feel was shame from the outside world. I never imagined she might feel it sitting across the table from me. Her name is Emma. She's 15, smart in a way that's quiet, the kind of kid who notices the small details no one else sees. Introverted, but witty when she lets her guard down. Sensitive, thoughtful, brilliant in English, average in math. My girl. And I had made her afraid to be human in front of me. She didn't say anything else that night, just gathered her things, went to her room, and closed the door softly, but it sounded louder than any slam. I sat there staring at her empty chair, the lump in my throat rising with every second. I wanted to defend myself, to yell, "I only push you because I believe in you," or, "The world isn't going to care how you feel. It's going to expect results." But I didn't say any of that, because deep down, I knew. I had become the voice in her head that whispered, "Not enough." The one that turned a 93% into "Why not 100?" That turned, "I tried," into "You didn't try hard enough." I wasn't cruel. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. But I sighed a little too loud when she forgot something. I corrected her papers instead of celebrating the effort. I said things like, "Don't be so sensitive," when she teared up over something small, little things, over time, until she learned that perfection, love, and mistakes. Mistakes meant silence, tension, disappointment. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, replaying every motivational speech I'd given. Every time I said, "You can do better." Every time I thought I was helping. And maybe I wasn't. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You can love your child more than life itself, and still become the person they're most afraid to let down. The next morning, she came down for breakfast with her hair in a messy bun, hoodie zipped up, earbuds in. She didn't look angry, just tired. I placed a bowl of oatmeal on the table. She didn't touch it. I wanted to apologize, to say something, anything, but the words felt too heavy in my mouth. Instead, I poured myself some coffee and sat quietly beside her. And for the first time in a long time, I just sat, not fixing, not correcting, not improving, just sitting, just being with her. Because maybe, for now, the first step wasn't to make it better. It was to stop making it worse. It's strange how fast your vision changes once you've been handed a mirror. After Emma said what she said, that she was afraid to fail in front of me, it was like someone turned the lights on in a room I'd been walking through in the dark for years. I saw everything differently, and I couldn't unsee it. That Friday, we were getting ready for school and work. I heard her from the hallway, mumbling to herself in the mirror, "No, you look stupid in that." I stopped. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. Her voice was low, tense, not performative, real, honest. A 15-year-old girl looking at her reflection and criticizing herself before the world even had the chance. I stood outside the door and felt my stomach twist, because I recognized that voice. It sounded just like mine. Not my actual voice, but the one I used with her, disguised as guidance. The raised eyebrow when she wore too much eyeliner. The long pause before saying, "That's what you're wearing." The just trying to help comments that stuck harder than I ever intended. She came out moments later wearing something different. I smiled too quickly and said nothing. But my silence wasn't neutral. It was heavy with all the things I wanted to say and was finally learning not to. Later that evening, After she was in her room and the house had settled into quiet, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the kitchen alone. No TV, no music, just me, just memory. I thought about my own mother, how she used to say things like, "You need to watch your tone," even when I hadn't said anything wrong. How she'd praise me when I got top grades, but barely blink when I got a B. How I learned, quietly, without realizing, that achievement bought affection. That good meant obedient, smart, impressive, and maybe I'd promised myself I'd do it differently. But had I? I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I started writing, like I always do when my chest gets too full. I didn't mean to make her afraid of failure. I thought I was teaching her to fly, but maybe all I taught her was that falling isn't allowed. The next day, I tried something different. We were in the car, driving to the mall. She needed new shoes for gym class. Normally, she'd scroll through her phone the whole ride while I used the time to ask about school, quiz her, sneak in life lessons, like I was a podcast no one subscribed to. This time, I just drove. She noticed. "You're not asking anything," she said, almost suspicious. I laughed softly. "Nope, just driving." She looked at me, then out the window. Weird, but 5 minutes later, she started talking, on her own, about a girl in her class who cheated on a test and didn't get caught, about how she was annoyed, but also kind of jealous. That's when I knew silence wasn't emptiness. It was space. And maybe that's what she needed more than anything. Space to tell the truth without fearing she was failing some invisible test. At the mall, I noticed how carefully she looked at herself in every mirror, the way she picked clothes and immediately second-guessed them, the way she checked my expression every time she held something up, waiting for my approval or my disapproval, both of which held too much power. I stopped pretending I didn't see it. "You don't need my opinion on everything," I said gently. She blinked. "I know." "You sure?" She hesitated. "No." We stood there in silence. Then I added, "You don't have to be perfect for me to love you." Her shoulders dropped just a little, not fully, but it was something. That night, back home, she disappeared into her room without a word, which I didn't take personally. I made myself tea, folded some laundry, and finally allowed myself to acknowledge something I'd been avoiding. I had made our relationship a performance. Every test, every outfit, every story she told me, she was performing to meet my standard. Not because I ever said she had to, but because she felt she couldn't afford not to. That's a kind of pressure that eats at you. That builds in layers. That hides inside well-meaning phrases like, "I just want you to reach your full potential. You're better than this. You can do more." That night, I stood outside her door, the same one I used to knock on when she was little and scared after a nightmare. I knocked once, lightly. "Yeah," she called. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She was sitting cross-legged on her bed, headphones halfway on, sketchbook in her lap. She looked up, waiting. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night," I began, "and I want you to know, you don't ever have to hide your mistakes from me." She blinked, slowly. "You don't have to earn my love. It's already yours." She stared at me for a beat too long, and then she didn't say anything. She just nodded. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she wiped them fast, like a reflex. "Okay," she whispered. That was all. No hugs, no dramatic music, just a beginning. And sometimes, that's enough. Because love doesn't always look like loud reassurance or big moments. Sometimes, it looks like sitting on your daughter's bed while she draws, and saying nothing, just being there, finally, without conditions. It wasn't until I stopped talking so much that I actually started to hear her. Not just her words, but her pauses, her silences, the way her voice changed when she was pretending to be fine, the subtle drop in energy when she didn't feel safe enough to say what she really meant. I realized that for years, I had filled every quiet space with corrections, feedback, guidance, encouragement, I called it. But if I was being honest, most of the time it wasn't encouragement. It was fear wearing a mask, fear that if I wasn't pushing her, the world would crush her. Fear that if I didn't help her become strong now, she'd be lost later. Fear that if I stopped controlling, I would lose her. What I didn't understand then was that I was already losing her. Not to rebellion, not to bad influences or the internet or peer pressure, I was losing her to the voice inside her own head, and that voice sounded a lot like mine. That week, I paid attention. I watched the way she hesitated before turning in her homework, triple-checking everything before pressing submit. I saw how she'd start to tell me something funny that happened in class, and then cut herself off halfway through, like she wasn't sure it was important enough to share. I noticed how she used phrases like, "It probably doesn't matter," and "It's not that big of a deal," like she was apologizing for taking up space. It broke my heart in slow motion. One afternoon, she came home from school with a paper clutched in her hand. I saw the red mark at the top, 92. She placed it face down on the counter like she was hiding it. I didn't say a word. Not at first, but the old reflex in me itched. That little voice in my head said, "You should ask why she lost those 8 points. Maybe she forgot to proofread. Maybe she needs to manage her time better." Instead, I picked it up, flipped it over, and said, "That's a great grade." She looked surprised. "Really?" "Yeah," I said. "Really?" She narrowed her eyes. "You're not gonna ask me why it wasn't higher?" "Nope." "Or what I got wrong?" "Nope." She stared at me like I was malfunctioning. Then she said, "It's the first time you've said something like that without adding a but after." And there it was. The truth I hadn't wanted to face. My love had become a transaction. My pride had come with fine print. I hadn't meant it that way. But when you grow up hearing that performance equals worth, it's easy to pass it on like a family recipe. That night, I found her sketchbook lying open on the coffee table. I wasn't snooping. Okay, maybe I was. But what I saw stopped me in my tracks. It was a drawing of a girl, curled in on herself, with sticky notes plastered all over her. Each one had a word scribbled on it. Too much, too dramatic, not focused, try harder, stop crying, smile more, disappointing. I covered my mouth with my hand, because even though she didn't write mom on a single one, I saw myself in all of them. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask what it meant. I just left her a note on her desk the next morning. "Hey love, just so you know, you don't have to be anyone else for me. Not better, not stronger, not more impressive. Just you, exactly how you are." She didn't say anything when she read it, but she stuck it in the back of her phone case. And that, to me, said everything. Later that week, I walked by her room and noticed she had left her door open. She always kept it closed. I peeked in and saw her lying on her bed, phone in one hand, pencil in the other, doodling absent-mindedly. I didn't interrupt. I didn't ask what she was working on. I just stood there, watching her for a moment. And I thought, she's not perfect. And she shouldn't have to be. And neither should I. That night, we made pancakes for dinner. Just because, no reason. No reward for getting good grades. No celebration of accomplishments. Just pancakes and syrup and a little bit of laughter. She told me a story about a girl in her English class who got busted for writing fan fiction about the teacher. We laughed so hard I had to wipe tears from my eyes. It was the first time in months I saw her truly let go. No filters, no pressure. Just Emma, my daughter, unperformed, unpolished, unapologetically herself. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about her future. I wasn't imagining her college essays or scholarship potential. I wasn't watching for signs of weakness or plotting how to help. I was just with her, in the moment, grateful. That night, as I turned out the lights, I paused at her door. She looked up from her bed. "Night, Mom." I smiled. "Night, Em. I'm proud of you." She raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For nothing," I said. "Just being you." She smiled. A real one. Not the kind she used when she was trying to please me. The kind that said maybe, just maybe. She believed me this time. And I walked away feeling something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. Not that everything was fixed, but that we were finding our way back. One gentle word at a time. I always thought I had done the work. You know, the self-awareness, the unpacking, the therapy, the parenting books that said things like, empower, don't control, and be the safe place, not the pressure point. I had sticky notes on the fridge that said progress over perfection, and you are enough. I thought that made me immune to becoming the kind of parent who passed down emotional baggage. But here's the thing. No one really tells you. Sometimes, We parent from our wounds without even realizing they're still bleeding. That week, I opened an old photo album. Not one on my phone, a real one. The kind with plastic sleeves and awkward captions written in gel pen. I came across a photo of myself at 15, same age as Emma now. In it, I'm standing at the edge of a school stage, holding a medal from a debate competition. I'm smiling, but my shoulders are tense. My eyes tired. There's a woman standing beside me, my mother, with a hand on my back and that same proud but not quite satisfied expression I had so often worn with Emma. I remember that day. I'd placed second. I thought I had failed. Because my mom, well, she wasn't cruel. She didn't scream or call names. But she had this way of making silence feel like punishment. She called it letting me think about things. I called it pressure that sank into my skin and stayed there. And now, decades later, I was doing the same. Just more politely, more subtly. I put the album away and sat on the couch in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just noticed. I noticed the chain of expectation, how it passes down like family jewelry no one really wants but everyone wears out of duty. Later that night, I told Emma a story I had never shared. We were making tea in the kitchen, and she mentioned being nervous about an upcoming math test. She made a joke about letting me down if she bombed it. I stopped what I was doing and said, "You know, I once got a C in algebra." She blinked. "You did?" "Yep. I was 15, just like you." "What did Grandma say?" I paused. She didn't yell, but she didn't hug me either. She just said, "I expected more from you." Emma made a face. "Ouch." "Yeah." She leaned against the counter. "Did it hurt?" More than I admitted at the time. We stood there for a beat. Then I added, "I think I've been carrying that expectation ever since. And maybe I've been passing it on to you." Emma didn't say anything right away, but her face softened. She said, "I don't want to feel like a project." That sentence hit me like a wave, because that's what I'd been doing, treating motherhood like a checklist, as if I could perfect her, as if she were a reflection of me instead of a human being all her own. I took a breath. "You're not a project," I said. "You're a person I love, even when you mess up, especially when you mess up." She blinked a few times, then smiled. A small, unsure smile, the kind that said she wasn't fully convinced. But maybe she wanted to believe me. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned off all my to-do lists. Literally, I deleted the daily planner app on my phone. I gave myself permission to let the house be a little messy. I sat outside with a book. I left my phone inside. Emma came out to the porch around sunset. She didn't say anything, just sat next to me with a blanket and her sketchbook. We stayed that way for almost an hour. Two quiet women, one grown and still learning, the other just beginning, both wrapped in silence that finally felt safe. At one point, she said, "I drew something. Want to see?" I turned to her. "Only if you want to share." She flipped the book around. It was a sketch of a girl curled up on a couch, a woman beside her, not fixing, not lecturing, not correcting, just sitting there, one hand resting gently on the girl's shoulder. The caption underneath said, "It's okay. I'm still here." I looked at Emma, and she looked at me. Neither of us said anything else, because the words were already there, in the drawing, in the porch light, in the shared space between us. That night, before bed, I wrote something new in my journal. This is what healing looks like. Not loud, not instant, not perfect, but quiet, and honest, and real. And slowly, I began to believe it. I didn't expect to be tested so soon. Change, as it turns out, doesn't wait until you feel ready. It throws you right back into the same old situations, just to see if the new version of you can hold steady, or snap. The test came on a Monday afternoon. I was unloading groceries when Emma walked into the kitchen, dropped her backpack onto the floor with more force than necessary, and mumbled, "I bombed the history project." I paused mid-fridge door. "Bombed?" I repeated carefully. "Like, how bad?" She shrugged, eyes down, pulling at the sleeve of her hoodie. 65. Oof. I felt the reflex rising before I could stop it. The heat in my chest, the panic in my brain. 65? That's barely passing. My mouth opened, ready to launch into helpful mode. "Did you not follow the rubric? Why didn't you show it to me first? Did you run out of time again? But I caught myself, because behind her shrug was a girl who was already bracing for impact. So instead, I closed the fridge, and I said the most foreign, most difficult word I could manage in that moment. Okay. She looked up, startled. Okay? Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry it didn't go how you hoped. She blinked. You're not mad. Disappointed for you. Not in you, I said gently. But no, I'm not mad. She looked at me like I was speaking another language. And maybe I was. Because to her, failure used to mean disapproval, correction, fixing. But now, I was trying to show her it could mean something else. Grace. She took a deep breath. I thought you'd be upset. I am, I said, because I know you care, and because I hate seeing you hurt. But that doesn't mean I think less of you. Silence. Then she whispered, It's the first time I didn't hide a bad grade. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you for trusting me with it. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, and started pulling groceries from the bags like nothing had happened. But I saw it, the slight lift in her shoulders, the way she moved with a little more ease. Later that evening, I found her in her room with books scattered everywhere. What are you working on? I asked gently, standing in the doorway, rewriting the essay, part of the project. The teacher said I could resubmit for partial credit. Need help? She hesitated. Could you read it when I'm done? Not to fix it, just tell me if it makes sense. I smiled. Of course. It felt small, almost ordinary, but it wasn't. Because a few weeks ago, she never would have asked. She would have rewritten it 3 times, hidden the grade, buried the shame, and handed in the next version hoping it would silently erase the mistake. Now she was asking for feedback without fear, and that was everything. That night, as I read her revised essay, I made sure to say what I used to forget. You explained this part really well. I liked how you connected it to your own thoughts. You're getting better at this. She didn't say much, just nodded and took the paper back. But later, I found a sticky note on my desk. It said, Thanks for helping me feel safe to mess up. I stared at it for a long time, and then something inside me softened in a way I didn't expect. Because all those years I spent trying to make her strong, all the structure, the rules, the lectures, what I really wanted was for her to be resilient. But resilience doesn't come from pressure. It comes from knowing you can fall apart, and someone will still be there. The next day, she submitted her project again. I didn't ask for the final grade. I didn't hover. Instead, when she walked in from school and dropped her backpack by the door, I asked, Want to make popcorn and watch something terrible on Netflix? She lit up. Like reality TV terrible. The worst kind. And that's what we did. No quiz. No school talk. Just popcorn and ridiculous drama and 2 girls on the couch. One growing up. One learning how to let go. And somewhere between episodes, she leaned her head on my shoulder, like she used to when she was small, and the world hadn't told her she had to be perfect yet, and I let her stay there. No advice, no teaching moment, just love, because that was the lesson now, that love doesn't wait for high scores. It shows up, even when things go wrong, especially when they do. Parent-teacher conferences used to be my thing. I was that mom, the one with the color-coded notebook, the highlighted report printouts, the questions ready, the concerned but polite smile. I sat up straight. I nodded thoughtfully. I took notes like I was at a corporate meeting instead of sitting across from a tired teacher trying to remember which kid I was there for. But this time felt different, not because I didn't care, but because for the first time, I wasn't there to evaluate. I was there to understand. Emma didn't know I was going. It was just a quick check-in her homeroom teacher had offered by email. Casual. 10 minutes. No pressure. Except, of course, I felt it, because I knew I was still trying to undo things, to repair, not just react. When I walked into the classroom, the smell of dry erase markers and old books hit me like nostalgia and guilt at once. Her teacher, Ms. Carter, greeted me warmly. She was young, maybe 30, with a tired bun and kind eyes. She's doing okay, she said, gesturing for me to sit. Emma's incredibly bright. She's quiet, but not in a withdrawn way, more like she's always processing. I smiled. That sounds right. She's thoughtful, a little intense sometimes, very self-aware, honestly, one of the most insightful students I've ever had. Pride swelled in my chest. And then came the part I didn't expect. She's also very hard on herself, Ms. Carter continued, softer now. It's like she thinks mistakes are dangerous. My breath caught. She apologizes constantly, even when she hasn't done anything wrong. If she doesn't have an answer right away, she freezes. It's not defiance. It's fear. Fear. That word again. Like a bruise someone keeps pressing by accident, and you pretend it doesn't hurt until it does. I nodded slowly. I've been noticing that, too. Ms. Carter tilted her head. It's not unusual for kids her age to feel pressure. But with Emma, it feels like the pressure comes from somewhere close. Not social media, not friends, more like internalized expectation. I swallowed hard. I wanted to defend myself, to say, I've always loved her unconditionally, to say we've been working on it, but I didn't, because the truth is, perception is powerful, and if your child feels like they can't fail without losing part of your approval, then your love, however real and unconditional, still feels conditional to them. I thanked her. We wrapped up. I walked to my car in a daze. Sitting behind the wheel, I stared out the windshield and thought, how many times has she apologized to me for simply being human, for forgetting, for spacing out, for not reading my mind? And how many times did I let her, not with cruelty, but with silence, with sighs, with raised eyebrows, with words like, you know better than that. That evening, I didn't say anything to Emma. I didn't want to make her feel watched or studied, but I noticed how she hesitated before asking to go out with friends, how she lingered near me, like waiting for an invisible signal of permission or approval, how she cleaned the kitchen after dinner without being asked, as if to earn back space for something she hadn't done wrong. So I tried something different. I walked over while she was finishing the dishes and gently took the sponge from her hand. You don't have to earn my calm, I said quietly. She froze. What? My mood? My love? My presence? You don't have to work for it. It's not a prize. It's just yours. She blinked quickly, lips parting like she might say something, but she didn't. Instead, she wrapped her arms around me. Not a polite hug, not a quick one. A full body, forehead to my shoulder, shaky breath kind of hug. I held her tight. I don't know how to stop doing that, she whispered. Me either, I said, but I'm trying. She nodded against me. And we stood there, surrounded by the sound of the faucet still dripping, the low hum of the fridge, and the soft, fragile peace of two people unlearning together. Later that night, I found her journal open on her desk. I didn't read the pages. I wouldn't invade that space again. But one sentence, written in big block letters, stood out on the open page. I'm allowed to breathe around her now. I closed the journal gently, turned off the light, and walked out with tears in my eyes and a strange kind of warmth in my chest. Not pride, peace, because maybe for the first time in her 15 years, she didn't feel like she had to be perfect, to be safe, to be loved, to be home. It started with a shoebox, one of those old, dusty ones I hadn't touched in years, tucked in the back of the hallway closet behind tangled Christmas lights and half-used rolls of wrapping paper. I was looking for batteries, but instead I found something I didn't know I needed. The box was labeled Emma, Little Years in black marker. I opened it without thinking. The smell of time rushing out, glue sticks, crayon wax, the faint scent of paper aged by memory. Inside were drawings, notes, a tiny pink sock I'd kept for no reason other than it used to fit her foot. And there, near the bottom, folded neatly, was a letter, written in pencil, spelling errors and all, on lined notebook paper. Dear Mommy, I love you, because you help me do hard things, and you make me feel safe when I mess up. I sat on the floor of the hallway and read it 3 times. You make me feel safe when I mess up. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped doing that. Not all at once, not on purpose, but gradually, quietly. As her life got more complicated, I got more careful, more focused, more afraid. I thought I had to train her for the world. I forgot that I used to be her world. That night, I brought the letter to her room. She was lying on her bed, scrolling her phone, her face bathed in the soft light of a screen. When I knocked, she looked up, a little surprised to see me holding something. What's that? She asked. I found it today, I said, sitting beside her. You wrote it when you were maybe 6. Maybe 7. She took it from my hand and read it slowly. Her lips curved up at the corners, just a little. I remember this, she said. You made me write thank you notes every week back then. You hated it. I laughed. She smirked. Still do. She paused. I can't believe I wrote that, she said softly. I can, I replied, because back then, that's how I made you feel. She didn't say anything. I continued. I think I got so focused on preparing you for the future, I forgot how to protect who you are now. She looked up at me, and I saw it. That flicker of recognition. Not the kind that says it's okay, but the kind that says I see it too. I miss her sometimes, she said, pointing at her younger self's handwriting. I miss her too, I said, but I think she's still here. She looked at me, surprised. I think, I said, she just needed to know it's still safe to be soft. Emma blinked quickly, her eyes wet but not spilling over. She folded the note and slid it into her sketchbook. I don't think I knew how to tell you, she whispered, that I was scared, that I felt like I had to be so much. I didn't know how to ask, I whispered back, if I was making it worse. Silence, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was soft, tentative, like something broken beginning to settle into a new shape. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and I didn't say anything. I didn't seize the moment to offer more wisdom or promises or parenting philosophy. I just let her rest there, because that was enough. That weekend, we did something we hadn't done in years. We went to the park. Not for an event, not for errands, not because we had somewhere to be after. Just to be. We walked, talked, laughed a little, sat on a bench and shared a smoothie. She showed me photos she had taken for a class project. Quiet shots of light falling across her bedroom wall, a cracked leaf on the sidewalk, the corner of her desk at golden hour. I like finding the beauty in stuff people overlook, she said. I smiled. You've always done that. Later, as we walked back to the car, she asked, do you ever wish I was little again? I thought about it. Yes, I said honestly, but not because I want to redo anything. She looked at me. I just miss how easy it felt to love each other out loud. No overthinking, no fear, just being together. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, it can be like that again. Maybe not exactly, but a version of it. And in that moment, I felt something lift, because I realized we weren't trying to go back. We were building something new, with more honesty, more softness, more grace, and maybe that was even better. That night, as I stood in the kitchen alone, pouring tea before bed, I wrote one sentence in the notes app on my phone. She's still the girl who feels safe to mess up. I just had to remember how to hold her that way again. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of ordinary day that would have gone unnoticed if it weren't for what it revealed. I had just gotten home from work. My shoes were still on, my keys still in hand, when I saw Emma sitting at the dining table, chin resting on her palm, a half-eaten granola bar beside her. She looked up as I walked in, then down again. Something was off. Her laptop was open in front of her, a document on the screen. The cursor blinked in the middle of a sentence. I walked in slowly, not wanting to interrupt whatever was happening in her head. Hey, I said gently. She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, she said, I forgot to turn in the English paper. I blinked. The one you spent all week on. She nodded, still staring at the screen. I thought it was due Friday. It was due today. I didn't submit it. My instinct kicked in. That little jolt of, how could you forget? But I didn't say it. I took a breath. What happens now? I emailed the teacher. I explained. She said she'll let me submit it late, but she'll deduct points. Her voice cracked. It's my fault. I walked around the table and sat beside her. You're human, I said. That happens. I worked so hard on it, she said, her eyes filling. And I just forgot. One click. That's all I had to do. And I saw it. Not just the mistake, but the weight she still carried. The belief that one misstep undid everything. She wasn't crying yet, but her hands were clenched, her shoulders high. So I reached over and covered one of her hands with mine. I'm not disappointed, I said. She finally looked at me. You're not, Emma, I said. This doesn't define you. One missed deadline doesn't erase all the effort. It doesn't take away who you are. She blinked fast, then let out a shaky breath. I think I believed it would, she said. Not because you say it, but because I used to feel it. I know, I said, and I'm sorry for the times I made you feel that way. She nodded slowly. I'm trying to believe it, she said, that I can mess up and still be okay. You can, I said. You already are. She didn't cry. She smiled. It wasn't big or dramatic, just a small, honest smile, the kind that says, I feel safe right now. And for me, that was everything. Later that evening, she printed out the paper and handed it to me. Want to read it? She asked. I opened it without hesitation. The title stopped me. What We Carry and What We Learn to Put Down. I read it slowly. It wasn't just about the assigned novel. It was about pressure, expectations, mistakes, identity. She had written about growing up in a house where perfection was often the invisible goal, and how learning to let go of that was her greatest lesson so far. There was a paragraph that brought tears to my eyes. Sometimes, we don't realize we're carrying a backpack full of invisible weights until someone helps us unzip it and says, you can put some of this down now. My mom is learning how to do that for me, and I'm learning how to let her. When I finished, I looked up and met her eyes. You wrote this. She nodded, suddenly shy. It's beautiful, I said. She exhaled. I was scared you'd be upset. About what? That you'd see yourself in it. I do, I said, and I'm proud. She didn't expect that. Neither did I. But in that moment, I realized something. I hadn't just helped her feel safe again. She had done the same for me, by trusting me, by showing up with truth, by letting me grow alongside her, not ahead of her. We weren't perfect. We weren't always healed, but we were honest. And we were choosing each other, not through control, but through care. Before she went to bed, she walked into the kitchen while I was cleaning up. She hugged me from behind, tight, no words, and I felt it in my chest, that quiet ache of relief, the kind that only comes after the storm has passed and the sky doesn't apologize for being blue again. After she went upstairs, I stood alone in the kitchen, tea in hand, looking around the house that had seen so many versions of us, and I thought, she doesn't fear me anymore. She trusts me, and that means I get to keep being her mother, not just in title, but in presence. Not the kind of mother who pushes her to be flawless, the kind who holds her through the fall, the kind who says, come as you are, even with the mess, especially with the mess. And that was the mother I was always meant to be. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. We'd also love it if you left a comment telling us which city you're listening from and whether you identified with this mother in any way. Have you ever gone through something similar to this story? If you can, share it with another mother who might be needing this dose of affection and hope. You are very important to us, and we thank you for being part of this community of reflection and love. Thank you so much, and see you next time.